Of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Today, we are welcoming Jim Angell onto the podcast. He is the managing partner at Kennedy Berkley, which is one of the leading ag law firms here in the region of Kansas. We are so excited to bring Jim on today to talk all things ag law, just the basis of ag law, how ag law has kind of changed over the recent years. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of our main topic today, which is cattle theft and what that looks like here in the state of Kansas and further out into the region of the Midwest, what we can be doing as producers to stay vigilant, be proactive, and continue to protect ourselves against this new world type of ag theft and what cattle theft looks like and how, it's not always the midnight runs that we see in the movies. It looks a little different these days. And Jim does an amazing job of discussing that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this podcast episode with Jim. Jim, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on with us today. I would love it if you could just take it away, share a little bit about you, your story, how growing up in ag, and then what got you into ag law.
Will do. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you having me on. I am an attorney at Kennedy Berkley in Salina, Kansas. We've got offices kind of all over the state. We've got offices in Kansas City. We've got offices in Garden City, Dodge City, Hayes, and Salina. I grew up in Downs, Kansas. It's a small north central Kansas town, 800 people. So agriculture was obviously the backbone. I mean, as a kid, I grew up on the farm. I grew up working on the family's hog operation, and I also worked on the side for several large local farmers and ranchers. And I learned a couple of things. Obviously learned the value of hard work. And also I learned that I wanted to get as far away from the farrowing sheds as possible. So, they say farming and ranching gets in your blood. Well, hog farming doesn't. Hog farming kind of gets in your clothes, and that's about it. It certainly doesn't get in your blood. So I wanted to get out of there and, kind of moved on to graduated law school. I moved back to Salina. Salina is about an hour and 20 minutes from where I grew up. We're at the crossroads of I-70 and I-35, kind of in the center of the state. Ag made a lot of sense doing what we're doing. Most all of us are small town kids. So it was a progression. Pretty much everything that we do at the firm at some level touches ag. And so it made sense to go into ag, and that's exactly what I did.
Can you share a little bit about some of the legal issues that you were seeing when you first started out as an attorney and how the nature of ag has kind of molded and shaped over the recent years?
For sure. So I started 26 years ago, and 26 years ago, things were just a lot simpler from a farming and ranching perspective. I mean, my work focused mainly on kind of fairly simple estate planning, boundary disputes, fence disputes, Yeah, we'd have some traditional kind of night haul theft. We have some issues with banks and cattle and sorting out security issues. But for the most part, it was pretty simple traditional stuff. Now, if you look, you look kind of where we're at now, I will coin a term that my 13-year-old likes to use a little bit when she says, "Oh, honey." Oh, honey is exactly right. I mean, farming and ranching now is big business. It's huge business. Kansas agriculture is a powerhouse. We've got over 6 million cattle. We've got one of the leading beef rolls and beef exports, and we're contributing billions to the economy. But farmland has absolutely soared in value. Equipment costs have soared. And so there's just been this economic boom. So in the last 25 years, I don't want to say the small family farm has died, because that's not right. There is a lot of smaller family farms out there, but even those smaller family farms are now big business, with ground at the price that it's at, and equipment at the price that it's at, and cattle at the price that it's at right now. There's just a lot of issues there. So, we deal with now large large complex disputes. We deal with issues regarding, multi-million-dollar estates. We've got the industrialization that's happened. There's a lot more issues around loans and leases and insurance. We've got stricter environmental stuff. Water has become a big issue. When I started, 26 years ago, water was an issue, but not anywhere near it is now. And I mean, we get into things now like, intellectual property and seed modification and, just data precision in agriculture. Climate change, or so-called climate change, has added all sorts of things like drought adaptation and, understanding what carbon credits are. So just a whole new world that we're living in. So it's the Skylar, when she says, "Oh, honey," it's right, honey. It has changed dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been working with ranchers for decades, obviously, and on a platitude of different topics, issues, things that you've been seeing. What makes the Kansas cattle producer unique as far as the legal standpoint goes?
I think we're unique in the sense that I think we're really good at scale and efficiency. I mean, we've got some of the biggest feedlots in the nation, some of the bigger ranches, obviously not as big as some of the other states, but I think we make a pretty smart use of the pasture land that we do have. And I think it's I know this is cliche, but it's a tight-knit community. I mean, it really is. I mean, there are guys in Northeast Kansas that know the cattle producers in Southwest Kansas. There's a big range, and I think that, the Kansas Livestock Association's good. I think we do a good job of supporting one another and resources. I know that all sounds cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Kansas really is the Midwestern cliche. We fall into every single one of them. So I couldn't agree more on that. I want to talk about Kennedy Berkley for a second, and specifically what you guys focus on when it comes to ag clients and what kind of work you and your team are doing.
Well, I mean, we do a lot of different types of work. Really, ag does touch on almost everything that we do. I mean, it really does. And it ranges in such a wide variety. I mean, we've got large, regional and national corporations that we work for. We've got big feedlots that we work for. We've got packers that we work for. We've got tons of co-ops. It just kind of, and then obviously the producers, which are our main clients. So it kind of runs the gambit. I like to think that, again, talk cliches, but I like to think that we kind of try to solve problems and we understand the ag industry. I mean, every single one of our guys, I think save one of our 11 attorneys are all small town kids that grew up on farms. And I think that helps because I think that helps us. I talk to people, I talk to our crew every day about, we need to understand the industry. I mean, that's the key. The key is not understanding the law. The law we can use to adapt. The key is understanding what our clients need and what the industry has to offer. So, I think, a lot of times the bigger city firms are just less practical. And I like to think that, we get in there and we're able to be more proactive and try to prevent problems that come down the line. But we've got a wide range of, I may talk to a producer that got 6 steers stolen on Tuesday, and then I might be talking to, a group in Liberal about carbon credits on Thursday. Just two kind of diametrically opposed things, but I don't know. That's what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to dive right into our main topic that we're here to talk about today, and that's cattle theft. And this, to a lot of people, it may seem like something that belongs in Hollywood, but it's still a real issue, and it's something that we're still dealing with in the 21st century. Actually, arguably, maybe even more than we dealt with it long ago. So can you share a little bit about cattle theft and what you have been seeing recently?
Sure. So we are dealing with it more, and largely it's because of the price. It's because of the value that we've seen, unprecedented. Well, at least from my perspective, unprecedented. I'm sure runs up in values of the livestock, and so it makes it a high target for theft. And the theft that is, I guess, more romanticized is kind of the night haul theft, where we go snatch and grab cattle and try to sell them. And that's out there. And that's a problem. And that's a problem that we'll kind of talk a little bit more about trying to address later. But, for quote unquote small amounts of cattle. Now, again, we know the value of somebody takes 5 cows. That's a lot of value. Right. We know that. But kind of what we're seeing is, we're seeing more brand tampering and more fraudulent stuff that's coming up. There's a recent case in southeast Kansas where 17 steers that were stolen. They actually had someone at the yard identify the blame and caught it that way, which you think about, you're hauling them from southeast Kansas to Oklahoma City. For someone to identify the brand was a pretty big deal. And I think that shows why vigilance and proper identification is critical, because you can do those. But the real losses that we see actually come from your partners. Like one example that we're kind of working on now, running a lot of pairs now makes sense. It just does. But the problem is, do you have enough grass? Right? So even the big operators don't have enough grass for all those pairs. And so oftentimes they're in loose partnerships, where they maybe have a couple of 3x5 tickets that aren't even in English as far as what was purchased. And then they let an operator take these cows, sometimes hundreds and hundreds of miles away. If the operator is not on the level, if the operator has got several people that they're dancing with, which is usually the case, and they've got several different owners that are coming in, that the operator is explaining, the operator saying, oh, these are your cattle, and using the same cattle to identify for multiple owners that are coming in, it becomes an issue. We're involved in a case right now where there's 500 cows. 500 cows are missing, and obviously there's been 2 birth cycles since then. So you can imagine the value of 500 cows, and it was a dirty operator. It was a dirty operator. So you have to trust but verify. We've got a lot of what we do is built on trust, and sometimes if a partner's out to get you, it's almost impossible to stop them. But you've got to trust, you've got to verify, you've got to lay eyes on these cattle, you've got to make darn sure that you're doing it, fairly regularly. Some of the stuff, I talk to guys and they'll say, well, what you're asking me to do, Jim, is not practical. And I understand that, but I also understand that, we've got to verify these things. And if not, that's where it kind of slips off into the night. So the bigger issues that we're dealing with, and we'll talk about some of the new criminal protections here, but some of the bigger issues that we're dealing with aren't just criminal. They're civil, because we're talking multi-million-dollar lawsuits that is kind of partner theft.
Wow. It's crazy to put it into perspective of truly how impactful it can be. When you say 500 pairs, like 500 cows and then 2 calving cycles, that's a lot. Like, that is multi-million-dollar theft and everything that goes along with it. As far as theft goes, what are some legal protections that these Kansas ranchers or ranchers across the Midwest should know about, should be looking into, and should be covering their butts on for their operations?
Well, specifically in Kansas, right now we have basic laws, theft laws that are on the books, which make it a felony for anything above $1,500 to be stolen, which again, that doesn't take very long to get there. The problem that we have is that it's got varying levels of severity. And I'm not a criminal lawyer. I've had to learn criminal law in how we're enforcing some of this cattle theft stuff. But basically the way it was set up before and the way it's set up now, it's very difficult. Yes, you can get people convicted for cattle theft. You've got to get your district attorney involved. You got to get them rolling. But even then, the severity and how they're doing it and the punishment that can be handed out and the rights of the owner are limited now. But there's actually a new bill that's been put into the state of Kansas. It's a proposed bill. It's House Bill 2253. And it was introduced in February. And we hope it passes, and I think it will. But what it does is it makes all cattle theft a level 5 felony, no matter what. So that means if you take one cow or you take 400, now you take 400, it gets even more severe than that, but you can be prosecuted for that. That also, and that covers farm equipment too, which we're not talking about now, but it covers that. But there's also some forfeiture rules in there, which would allow the government to seize vehicles that have been used in the theft, can seize assets from the thief, bring those in as part of repayment of that. It's just some more teeth in the law, which will hopefully kind of discourage, especially those night haul kind of snatch and grab guys that are doing that. Hopefully there'll be some more teeth in that, and I think there will be, and hopefully that'll be a deterrent.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone is suspecting theft, what are the action steps that they need to be taking for that?
Well, if it's a kind of a snatch and grab thing, the first thing is kind of the stuff you see on TV. Don't disturb the scene, right? There may be tire tracks, there may be footprints, there may be things like that. Got to notify local law enforcement first and get them involved. But then also, notify the Kansas Department of Agriculture's Division on Animal Health, because they can track stolen livestock. Also, the KTLA, Kansas Livestock Association, has a $5,000 award for information leading to convictions. So that's the case. And then, I consult with an attorney, and especially probably want an attorney, your local attorney, kind of helping monitor what's going on with the criminal side of it. And then there's also civil things that can be done, especially in, those kind of partnership situations that we discussed, where large amounts of cattle are getting moved around and tags are getting changed and etc.
Absolutely, for sure. So Jim, this has been an awesome discussion. I have enjoyed talking about this so much and just continuing to inform our producer population here in the state of Kansas and outside of the state of what they can be doing, how they can be protecting themselves, advocating for themselves, as far as just different ways that they can seek protection and continue to watch their backs on something that is not just part of old time movies, that it is a part of our real lives every single day. It just looks a little different these days. So I would love to hear some advice that you have for ranchers, how to protect their operations and what they need to be doing to continue to move forward with this.
Well, I mean, one of the things obviously is, be proactive and keep your brand paperwork current and registered. When you're partnering with somebody, first off, there's large amounts of money changing hands. We all know this. So sometimes we can't do these deals on a handshake. Sometimes we need to be a little more proactive about clarifying roles and making sure that we understand the partnership that's in place and, what's going to be paid to the operator, what isn't, because that often becomes in dispute. And then, again, I conduct as many live counts as you can conduct. If they're in the trees, don't take the operator's word for it. Get out there. Get a drone if necessary to try to put head counts on everything. Make sure that when they're on grass, if you're running pairs when they're on grass, we've identified them and we know they're still there. Obviously, build relationships with neighbors and, to monitor suspicious activity. I think most people have that. Consider security cameras. I mean, I know all of our feedlots we've got all our feedlots, I would assume most all of our feedlots, hopefully all of them, teched up to the hilt to make sure that we're monitoring that. Kind of stay informed on the local law. Hopefully that House Bill 2020-53 will pass and strengthen those protections. And then, good fences make good neighbors, and good records help us make good recoveries. So I guess that's what I would close it with.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes back to one of those situations that you never think it's going to be you until you're in that situation. So continue to be proactive, have your records straight, have a good relationship with an attorney that is walking you through these partnerships and these deals. And people are signing papers instead of just handshaking on it and calling it a day, because you never want to, honestly, a good contract, a good relationship with that takes all the guesswork out of it. Then you don't have to approach a buddy down the road who's got some of your cows and be like, then you have an awkward conversation, right? It's all written out. The expectations are there. Everyone is clear, straightforward, records are kept, everything like that. And I think we touched on it a little bit, but Kansas is not a brand mandatory state, right, but it does cover your butt if you do brand. And so taking that into consideration too, making sure your tattoos are up to date, you're branding all of your calves, you're putting eyes on everything to continue to be proactive in ways that you can, because you never think it's going to be you until you're in that situation. And God forbid, you have to call Jim and say, hey, some of my cows got stolen. Let's talk. Hopefully you're calling Jim and saying, hey, I would like to set up an estate and a trust and all of these things that just normal day-to-day operational things, and not because your cattle are getting stolen. But continue to be proactive, set yourself up for success. And for all of you listeners out there, we have an amazing working relationship with the team at Kennedy Berkley. We've had Paige on before, who is one of their other attorneys and a close friend of mine. We will have all of the Kennedy Berkley links down below for you guys. So if you need anything, setting up just a relationship with an attorney, you need specific help on different projects, drafting contracts, anything like that, make sure you check out those show notes, and they will have all of the contact information, get you in contact with the right team member that is able to help you in your region in the state of Kansas. And if not, if you're not in the state of Kansas, look up your local ag law attorneys or reach out to the Kennedy Berkley team, and they might have some great network connections outside of the state as well. So for all of you listeners, thank you for listening to another episode, and we will see you all next time. And Jim, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.